Hey there, this is Ryan Eckert with Peak Endurance Solutions. Thank you for purchasing a triathlon base plan from the Training Peaks training plan library that I have available. The point of this video is to give you a brief overview of this base plan that you have purchased, as well as go over some of the features that are available to you within this plan and some of the documents that I have available to you in this plan as well. You'll notice that for the purpose of this video, I have an intermediate 10-week triathlon base plan pulled up. The purpose of this video is just to give a general overview of the features of the plan, which are the same across all different levels of plan, whether it's a beginner, intermediate, or advanced level plan. But this one is triathlon base plan specific. If there are any differences that the beginner or the advanced plan has that don't show up in this intermediate plan, I'll be sure to point them out. But there's really only like one or two small differences between a beginner plan and an intermediate and an advanced plan, and I'll be sure to mention that when I get to that feature. So just to start, you'll notice that on day one of week one, there is an introduction note card to read through. So this is where you hopefully have found the video that you're watching right now. So it'll be a different video link than is right here because I'm remaking this video link as of March 2026 when I'm recording the video, but you'll click on that link here and then it will give you this video overview that you're watching right now. After you're done watching this video, you want to go ahead and go down to the bottom or the top of the note, depending on how it shows up, if you're on your computer version of Training Peaks app or if you're on the phone version of the app. But there's going to be a PDF document that's attached here. So if you click on that, it'll download a PDF document that when it opens up should look something like this. And you'll notice that there are a few different pages in this instruction booklet. So this is an important first step before tackling the sessions within this base plan, especially if you are a beginner or you have a beginner plan or you're just brand new to Training Peaks. There's a lot of useful sessions and sections in here for you to review as well. But you'll notice that I start with just a brief intro. I give an overview as to the layout of the training plan and some of the content within. I also highlight some of the features of Training Peaks. So if you're new to Training Peaks, I point out some of the basic features of Training Peaks, what some of those different pages are that you're going to see on the app or on the web version of the app, such as your home page, your calendar page. You'll see different types of different types of sessions included within this base plan. So this will give you an overview of what some of those different types of sessions are. And then just some more details related to the functionality of Training Peaks. You'll see I list here some of our partners that we have that work with us. I just have a few listed here, but there are some discount codes or ways that you can access some discounts through some of these partners that we have for various things, such as like swim apparel, nutrition related items, and some custom Peak Endurance Solutions branded apparel as well. And then I get into some of the more important sections of this document, which includes an overview of different endurance terms and terminologies that I use in this plan. So a lot of coaches and even athletes have different ways that they describe certain terms within the endurance sport realm. I try and use pretty like basic generalized terms that most athletes and coaches would be familiar with. And this is mostly going over some of the different terms that I use or some of the ways in which I prescribe exercise intensity, as well as the naming of some of the different types of sessions that you'll encounter in this plan. So I highly recommend that you read through this section. This is probably one of the most important sections to read through, as it will help you understand what some of the different ways of prescribing intensity are that I use. If you have a beginner plan, the major difference between a beginner and intermediate and advanced plans is that everything is prescribed based on perceived exertion in beginner plans. So you will exclusively use this perceived exertion chart. So become familiar with how I use rating of perceived exertion, as well as this chart, because I will prescribe everything based on this. So I might give you an aerobic run session where you have an easy warm-up at an RPE of 3 to 4, an aerobic effort for the main set of 5 to 6, and then a cool down at 3 to 4 again. So it's a really easy and simple method of prescribing intensity, and this is what I use for beginner plans. If you have an intermediate or advanced plans, I'll use things such as a percentage of your threshold pace or a percentage of your cycling power. And I also introduce how to use heart rate as well in some of my plans. So this next section that goes over different training zones is going to be really useful to understand that. I use just kind of a classic 5-zone training model, but there are as little as 3 training zone models and as high as like 8 to 9 training zone models as well, especially on with cycling. So become familiar with this. This is kind of the basic 5-zone model that I use, and then what percentage of maximum heart rate, swim pace, run pace, and cycling power is associated with those zones. And then finally, what type of effort is associated with that zone. This is important because I do use a lot of this terminology in the training plans that I have available. And then I go over some of the different types of sessions that you're going to encounter in this plan. So since these are base plans, the majority of the training that you're going to do is easy and aerobic training. So this goes over in a little bit more detail what easy training is, aerobic training is, how they should feel, and then tempo sessions and interval sessions. I actually don't think I have any tempo sessions in any of my triathlon base plans, so this is more just information for you to know and not necessarily apply in this plan, but I do start to throw in some interval sessions towards the end of these plans. So become familiar with what an interval session is as well. And then I go over resistance training session terminology. Resistance training I prescribe in the base plans, usually 1 to 2 times a week. And I prescribe strength training or resistance training in every single training plan that I have available, regardless of the level or what sport it's for. It's incredibly important to do strength training as an endurance athlete, not only for injury prevention or injury resilience, but there is also some performance enhancing benefits of doing certain types of strength training. In a base plan, you might not necessarily get into some of the more advanced types of strength training that have performance related improvements, but any and all type of strength training does have some level of performance enhancing benefits, even if it's not some of the specific types that have more of an impact on endurance specific performance. But just from a general like injury prevention and resilience standpoint, as well as just an overall health standpoint, it's an important part of just maintaining general health to do resistance training. So if you have not ever done resistance training, these base plans can be a really good time to start, because I usually introduce strength training regardless of the level of the plan and kind of start fairly basic across all the different plans. And if you are seasoned with strength training, then I'll also include it in here so you can kind of keep that strength training going in your week-to-week plan. And then I go over a couple more different topics. So maximizing recovery. This is mainly just like kind of big picture items related to recovery. So things like sleep, hydration, nutrition. Again, just general concepts, like big picture concepts and how they relate to maximizing recovery. And then I have a section on basic sports nutrition. This is a more applicable or relevant section for maybe plans where you get into some longer distance training sessions or you're preparing for races. You may not necessarily need to go into great depth in reading this section, but it is pretty short. So I would recommend reading through it anyways, because it covers nutrition, not only during training, but also before and after, and like how those things influence your ability to recover between sessions and perform during sessions as well. And then I have down here just some general evidence-based nutrition guidelines as far as pre-exercise, during exercise, and post-exercise. And then I finish with my contact info. So if you ever have any questions on this plan or any other plans, or if you ever want to inquire about coaching, you can always reach out to me through my email here, which is peakenduranceSolutions@outlook.com. And then I also link to the blog that I have on my website. I call it my VO2 Max Forum. It's basically just a collection of, I call them science posts, where I dive into the science of various different types of endurance-related topics, and I will kind of summarize some of the more recent literature and science surrounding that topic so that it is digestible to the everyday average athlete or coach. So that is the instruction booklet. Once you are done reading that, then you are essentially ready to take on this base plan. I started with a rest day on purpose so that you can just set aside like an hour of time to review this video and review the document. And then you'll notice that for week 1, if you have an intermediate or an advanced level plan, it starts with some testing sessions. So it'll start by doing a bike-specific threshold test, a swim, I call it a critical swim speed test, but it's just a type of threshold test, and then a run-specific threshold test. If you have an intermediate plan, you'll see that the bike-specific threshold test is just heart rate. If you have an advanced plan, you'll see that the bike is based on power. But beginner plans won't have any of these testing sessions. These testing sessions are important because it will help you learn to set up and establish your training zones in your Training Peaks settings so that bike sessions are prescribed to you based on a percentage of your threshold power if you have an advanced plan, and for the run, a percentage of your threshold pace if you have an advanced or an intermediate plan. For swimming and cycling, I usually prescribe that based on perceived exertion across beginner and intermediate plans. And then advanced plans, I still prescribe swimming based on perceived exertion and cycling based on a percentage of threshold power. But regardless, these tests are kind of giving you some checkpoints as well, giving you where some of your fitness is at the beginning of the plan and then at the end of the plan. And hopefully, if nothing else, it has improved even just marginally from week 1 to the final week of your plan. And then once you are done with these tests, you'll kind of start to get into the meat of the base plan. So week 1 is fairly light outside of the testing sessions. And then in week 2, you'll notice that things start to gradually progress in terms of the overall duration at first of each session and the weekly training volume you have. And then it'll start to add in some intensity into your plan as well. Usually around the halfway point, you'll get some short, hard interval sessions in there. But again, this is a base plan, so it is primarily aimed at developing your aerobic base or your aerobic foundation, which is kind of the foundation or the pillar of your base level of fitness so that you can then build upon that base level of fitness with race-specific fitness. If you are targeting a specific race and going into a specific plan for that race once you're done building this base. So this type of plan is really geared towards someone who is maybe coming out of or entering an off season or kind of coming out of like a post-season period after a major race. And they're more so just getting back into the swing of like structured training and looking to develop their base level of fitness before they move into more race-specific training. So because of that, you'll notice that most of the training is easy recovery sessions and aerobic sessions. You'll also notice that throughout the training plan, I have sessions labeled as A sessions, B sessions, and C sessions. This is one way I integrate some customizability and individualization into these training plans. I do this for all of my Training Peaks training plans. Think of the A, B, and C structure as not so much a way of describing which ones are the most important versus the least important, but the ones that are a way of deciding which sessions to skip or modify first if time becomes an issue during the week. So the way you want to think about this is try and get all sessions in throughout the week, if possible. All the sessions are important. They all are just small pieces of the puzzle of the overall base plan. So they all are impactful. Obviously, some sessions are slightly more important than others, like some of your bigger, longer aerobic sessions may be slightly more impactful than doing like a really short, easy recovery session. But all of them are still important. If you encounter a week where you know that you are going to have to rearrange your schedule and potentially remove some sessions or shorten some sessions, then this is where the A, B, C structure of the sessions can really help you. Let's say you're traveling a specific week and you maybe have to take a couple days off, so you have to shuffle around some sessions and maybe there's 2 days out of the week where you just can't train. Well then, let's say if that's week 2, you could drop some of the C sessions first and then rearrange the week so that if you have to have a day off or two, you can have a day off or two and then still get in all your A and B sessions. The B sessions are the ones that you want to modify or shorten after you have removed the C sessions. So if you have to update your week and you're cutting out the C sessions, but you just still don't have enough time to get in all the sessions after those are gone, then you would either shorten the B sessions or remove those entirely if you had to. The A sessions are the ones that you really want to try and get in week to week. If you start to not do all of the C sessions and B sessions each week, which there's usually 2 or 3, usually 1 or 2 C sessions and then 1 or 2 B sessions. All the strength training is labeled as a B session, but really kind of think of that as an A session. I only leave it as a B just because if you had to cut it, you could, and missing a week of it obviously isn't the end of the world, and it's not going to have a significant detrimental impact on the overall goal of this plan, which is to build a base of triathlon specific fitness. But still try and get the strength training in. Think of that as like the last session to cut before you start to get to A sessions only. But the A sessions, you really want to try and get all those in. If you are missing C, B, and some A sessions week to week, and it's happening multiple weeks in a row, you start to kind of fall behind in the base plan, and then the rest of the plan after those weeks, you might feel like you're kind of playing catch up because the volume starts to move beyond what is sustainable for you to jump from 1 week to like 2 or 3 weeks later if you start to miss out on a bunch of volume. Again, not that these base plans are significant in terms of like the overall volume that they introduce, but you will start to feel like you're falling behind if you start to miss too many sessions. So think of the A, B, and C structure that way. And then you'll move through the training plan again, depending on the level of your plan and the length of the plan. You'll get to the end of the plan, and then that is essentially it. It doesn't culminate with any sort of race or anything. In intermediate and advanced level plans, I introduced some test set sessions in here, particularly on the run. So you'll do some fitness testing as well as a test set on the run. I introduce how to use the test set sessions in week 1. I give a pretty good background in terms of like how to use it and what this sort of session is looking at and testing. So there are multiple ways in which you can kind of gauge your fitness from the beginning to the end of this plan and see if you accomplish the overall goal of just improving your aerobic fitness base. So that is an overview of this triathlon base plan. If you have any questions, again, you can reach out to me at peakenduranceSolutions@outlook.com. I also have a website. It's listed in the Training Peaks training plan library where you purchase this plan as well as other contact information for myself. But it is peakenduranceSolutions.com, and I have various ways of getting in touch with me there.